Hi everyone, my name is Marie-Claude Léveillé. I'm a Senior Technology Partner Manager for Shopify in France. I've been working for Shopify for about 7 years, and today I want to share a bit of my findings with you. So we're going to be talking about the key principles and the best practices in store design and marketing. So how to grow your traffic and your sales. So let's get going. Here's what we're going to be covering today. So first and foremost, how to reach beyond the storefront, how to grow your traffic organically before you're investing into paid marketing. So how to really set yourself up for success first. The second point is your store design, how less is more and how customers are looking for functionality and practicality. And last but not least, in terms of marketing, how to get to know your customers. What tools are at your disposal to really make the best out of your marketing? All right, so let's get right into it. So one thing I want to emphasize before we get going is that you don't need to make drastic changes to make a big difference, right? And sometimes all it takes is that we need to get into the shoes of a customer to really understand what's going to make an impact and what's going to grow your traffic, your sales, and your conversion. So the first point I want to make here is to ask yourself some kind of basic questions before getting into this, right? So if you're shopping on an online store and you end up leaving, what's the reason behind that? Is there a recurring pattern in online stores that you visit that inevitably let you to leave the store before you actually purchase? So what are those reasons and how can we be insightful in that and maybe apply that to our own online store? The second point is the opposite of that, right? What keeps you interested? When you last visited an online store that you found really interesting, what was it about that online store that made you interested? And to that point, is there anything on the other side that makes you really frustrated about an online shopping experience? Can you remember the last time that you went on a store and you were really lost or you were really frustrated? So how do we pinpoint those things and avoid them? And last but not least, what is it about your favorite online store that makes it stand out? So think about the last time that you made a purchase on your favorite store. What was so special about it, and how can we apply that same concept to our store? So let's just keep these questions in the back of our mind as we're going to go through these next couple of slides here. So the first point is how to grow your traffic organically, how to get better return on investment in terms of ad campaigns, and how do we set ourselves up for success first and foremost. So one thing that I want to point out is that everyone's online right now. So we're all working from home or just, at home because there's still a pandemic, even though it's slowly coming to an end. So let's take advantage of that, right? Let's recognize that first and foremost, and let's take advantage of it. And one way to do that is creating quality content, right? Because everyone's on their phone, on their laptops right now, and people are really yearning for some more content. So whatever the subject you're an expert in, if you're selling fashion, write about fashion. If you're selling beauty, there's a ton of people looking for content on beauty. So write about that. And don't be afraid of adding media. Don't be afraid if you have the opportunity to add quality pictures, some videos, podcasts, whatever it may be, because that is what will make you stand out from everybody else. And ultimately, the better your content, the better returns you're going to get on your ad campaigns, right? If you, for example, take two different businesses, and they're both selling the same thing. One has a really healthy Instagram with beautiful content, and they have a nice blog where people can comment and stuff like that. And the other one has barely anything on their social media or on their website. And both of them are going to be spending, let's say, $1,000 on an ad campaign. Which is going to get the better returns? Obviously, it's going to be the one with the more quality content, right? Because you're really providing your customers an experience before you're even targeting them, which is something that people really appreciate because we're all getting a bit complacent in terms of getting ads targeted to us all the time. So if we click on an ad and we go to the Instagram account or the website and the content isn't really great, then we're not going to be very encouraged to purchase. So one doesn't work without the other, right? You can spend $1 million on an ad campaign if you want, but if your content isn't particularly great, you're not going to get very great returns. So let's take advantage of the fact that everyone's online right now. Let's provide them with valuable content, and ultimately we're going to see better returns after the fact. So my second point is about store design, how less is more. I think a perfect example of this is Apple products, right? Like Apple products have taken over the world, but I think the key to their success is that they're very minimalist, right? They're very functional. And in that functionality, there's beauty, right? They're beautiful looking products, but ultimately it's their functionality that make them so popular. So I think people are really looking for that same experience when they're browsing online or they're shopping online. So the less friction they have to go through, the better, right? The more they can understand the workings of your store instinctively, the better it is, and ultimately the more chances that this customer is going to convert. So sometimes you have to kind of find a balance between functionality and aesthetics. Of course, your store has to be beautiful, but again, sometimes there's beauty in things just being very simple and very functional. And ultimately, the less time that your customer has to spend to get from point A to point B, the more chances they're going to have to convert. So point A being when they first land on your website, to point B being when they finish their purchase. So what can we do to really minimize that friction, right? Like, let's look at the architecture of the store. Is that really necessary? Is the navigational menu easy to understand? Because sometimes when it's our website and it's our business, we kind of look at it, and for us it's obvious because we've built it, right? Like, we're the brain behind it, so of course it's going to make sense to us. But asking friends and family, or even better, random strangers to look at your store and tell you what makes sense and what doesn't is something that can be extremely, extremely valuable. And the last point that I want to make is something that's really important, and that's getting to know your customers. So again, I talked about how everyone's online right now, and that makes it so that customers are like on Instagram communities, Facebook, TikTok, they're on podcasts. You know, people are really bringing their social life that they used to have in the real world to these online communities. So integrate yourself into those communities and get to know what your customers are looking for, what they like, what they don't like. Is there a trend that you'd be able to apply to your business? So really try to get to know that. And the second point here is find ways to bring a human approach to your marketing and to your customer service. So back in 2019, before the world went a little bit crazy, you were able to walk into a store and talk to a sales representative or have somewhat of a social experience as you were shopping, but now that doesn't exist anymore. So I think customers are really yearning for that experience in some way or another. So how can you replicate that through your store or your blog or your social media, for example, right? Bring that human touch and really differentiate yourself from the competition that's going to maybe just take a traditional approach to the way that they manage their customers. One thing, and probably the most important thing of all here, is use your customer data to your advantage. Like, this is free information that you have. And every online merchant knows that they spend a lot of resources and money into getting that customer to purchase at their store for the very first time. So it's imperative that you maximize those efforts and you get your customers to come back. And how do we do that? When customers are visiting your store or they're making a purchase, you get a lot of information about them. There's different tools that will tell you where they went on your store, how much time they spent, what collections they view, what products they're more interested in. And after they make a purchase, you know exactly what they like, right? You know exactly what they've purchased, where they're from, etc. And whatever your e-commerce platform is, you'll have segmentation tools where you're able to quickly put your customers into different groups based on their behavior on your store or their purchase history. And so later on, when you're doing email marketing campaigns, as opposed to sending an email that's just general, that people will know is just like spam or an email marketing email, send something that's exactly based on what they purchased before or their behavior, and they're going to be so much more inclined to actually open it and come back to purchase a second, third, fourth, fifth time, etc. So that is really, really key. And lastly, to that same point, curate your content based on that knowledge, right? You're finding out so much about your customers this way that you know what they like, you know what they want to see. And, maybe if your content wasn't about this, you can pivot and you can make changes, right? I think if there's anything that these past couple of years have shown us is that we need to change very quickly. We need to be really adaptable. We need to be really flexible. And so it's about a constant learning experience where you're learning so much about your customers, about your own business, what works, what doesn't, and it's okay to make changes based on that. So just to kind of sum up everything that I've just mentioned, integrate yourself into online communities, right? Make sure you're maximizing your efforts before you invest too much into paid ads. Set yourself up for success. Make sure your store is understandable by your customers. You don't want to frustrate them or anything to the point where they won't actually convert. Make it as easy for them to spend their money at your store as they possibly can. And the last is really getting to know them, right? Like if you don't try to get your customers, you're not going to get anywhere. And the more you spend energy listening and really getting to know them, the better off you're going to be. And so that's it for me. I hope these were some valuable points for you, and thanks for watching.